moving to LA with this one-top grading technique. Secret number 2, making the grade. The 9 steps to becoming your own colorist without feeling lost or overwhelmed. And secret number 3, big budget look. How to get an expensive high-end look without buying more expensive gear. Let's get right into this with some actionable steps you can begin using today. All right? Secret number 1, cinematic look, how to grade like a Hollywood colorist without moving to LA with this one-top grading technique. When I was first getting started, I found the internet to be a great place to search for articles and tutorials. I found specific how-tos like how to bring a project into Resolve or how I might solve other specific problems. But really, it was just a mismatch of information where nobody actually walked you through the same steps that top colorists were using to create the kind of work like you see on the big screen. This for me was really frustrating because I spent so much time trying to piece information together. Some of the advice was conflicting, and I never really felt confident that I was doing it the right way. Have you had this experience? I also thought that I'd never discover these steps, but then I attended a week-long workshop in Los Angeles. I mentioned this earlier, and what I discovered there was a powerful technique that has come to define the way I color grade ever since. And if I can just tell you, when I discovered this technique, it was like a shockwave went off. It was like my eyes were opened and I was able to clearly see and understand how to color grade the right way. The good news is you don't have to travel to LA because you're going to get this right now. I'm going to reveal to you the one secret technique that completely reshaped the look of my films and the trajectory of my career. And I promise you, if you follow this technique, it'll have the biggest impact on your grading and the look and quality of your films. So if you have a paper and something to write with, you'll want to get this. The first thing we want to do is we want to do color correction to fix any problems in our image. This forms what's called our base correction. The second step is to do shot-to-shot matching across all the clips in the scene to ensure consistency between shots. The third is to use groups so that when we then go to create a look for the film, everything is organized and the same look gets applied across the board. And the fourth and final step is to create a look that aids with the emotion of the story and sets your film apart. Okay? Isn't that awesome? I'm surprised by how many people don't follow this or any workflow for that matter, and that ends up in them wasting a lot of time and getting muddy looking images. All right, so that's the big picture. So let's drill down into each one of these, and bear with me, I'm gonna go through these real quickly because we have a lot to cover. The way to do color correction is to evaluate the image and identify overall issues or problems with the picture. Then we do what's called primary color correction to fix the larger issues with the tools that affect the entire image. Let me just show you some examples of this. Here's an underexposed image where it's too dark and it's difficult to see our talent. And here it is with a primary color correction being applied where we've brought up the exposure and we can now see things easier in the shot. Here's an example of overexposure where the shot is too bright or too hot. And here it is with primary color correction being applied to bring the exposure down. Here's an example of a white balance or color temperature issue where the scene is overly warm. And here it is with the whites being neutralized or balanced with a primary color correction with the temperature control. Here's a shot where the white balance is too cool because it was filmed in the shade. And here it is with a primary color correction pushing warmth into the highlights so everything looks more natural. Finally, here's an example you might see typical of interior environments with fluorescent lighting where it's too green. And here it is where we've neutralized the green color cast with a primary color correction using the tint control. After you've taken care of the larger issues, we can then move on to identifying smaller or isolated issues and address those smaller issues with what's called a secondary color correction. Let me show you what I mean with an example. In this shot, we have a lighting issue where clearly the main focus is the gentleman in the foreground. You can see, however, that he's underexposed. Well, if say we were to do a primary color correction to bring up the exposure of the shot, well, we've solved the problem of the underexposure on the gentleman in the foreground, but now the female in the background is overexposed or too bright. This is a case where primary color correction isn't going to work. Instead, we'll perform an isolated or secondary color correction on just the gentleman in the foreground, and doing it this way, we can bring up the exposure on just him without affecting the female in the background. And we've been able to do this by using a power window or mask to just isolate him and bring up the exposure on just him. Here's an issue with mixed lighting where there are two different light sources. We have daylight mixed with fluorescent. The daylight you can see coming in from the outside. And again, we have the harsh green fluorescent lighting that's making our skin tones look really green and terrible. Again, if we were to do a primary color correction to try to fix the skin tones, well, we've been able to address the skin tones, but now the entire image is completely thrown out of whack, making it purple. So a primary color correction isn't going to fix this. Instead, what we want to do is we want to isolate just the skin tones and then perform a secondary color correction or an isolated treatment on just them. And you can see we've been able to fix the skin tones with the HSL curves, specifically the hue versus hue curve. But just so that you can see that again, here it is with the mixed lighting with those harsh green skin tones, and here it is with a secondary color correction. You can see the dramatic difference it made using a simple secondary color correction. Okay, moving on to the next step, which is shot matching. The first thing we want to do when doing shot matching is to pick a hero shot or a shot that's a good representation of the scene that will match the other shots to. Then, of course, we need to identify which of those clips have the mismatch issues. Then with our color controls, we'll match those shots to our hero shot. To do this, we have the help of our scopes, and we can use a side-by-side or wipe comparison to do it. So let me show you an example of this. Here we have a mismatch issue between the shot of this female actor and the male actor. You can see that his shot is more red than hers. I'm just going to toggle back and forth quickly so you can better see the mismatch. In this particular project, I decided to use this shot as the hero shot because I like the way that the color grading came out, or the color correction rather. And you can see now where I've been able to match that with the hero shot. Jumping back and forth between the two, you can see that we now have consistency, and this is really important because it will really throw your audience out of a scene like a bad audio mix if they don't match. Next, we want to be able to apply a final look or look grade to all the clips or group of clips. So we want to be able to have a means of grouping clips together. And I'll show you real quickly what this looks like in DaVinci Resolve. We basically just select the clips that we want to group together, holding down the Command or Control key to select multiple, and then give the group a name. And now we're to the really fun part of color grading. Pretty much everything we've done up until now is just work. But now we get to add in our creativity. And of course, we don't want to just throw on any look or slap on any LUT. We do want to have an objective. So here are some guideline questions you can use. What is the emotion or genre of your story? Do we want to suggest a happy or sad feeling? Do you want to suggest a time of day, a place, or a certain time period? And then we'll want to choose colors or color contrasts that give that emotion or suggest a genre for the story. Once we have our objective in mind, we can then go about creating it. So let me just show you some examples of different looks, and I think this will make more sense. In our shot from earlier with the primary color correction applied, here it is now with a final look being applied that cools it down and increases the contrast. And you can see now that this better fits with the mood or the expression on her face. Here's an example of a shot that was supposed to take place at night, but for whatever reason during the production scheduling, this was shot during the day, but still needed to look like it took place at night. But you can see that with a final look grade, we can make this look as though this took place at night. This is called a day for night look. Really cool, isn't it? Here's our example earlier with the mixed lighting. Watch how we can suggest different locations based on the final look. By creating a warm look, we can make this appear as though this is in LA and we're looking at the Los Angeles Police Department. Alternatively, we could grade this cooler and make it look as though this is in New York and we're looking at the NYPD. And you can see going back and forth between the shots that we can really suggest a location based off of a look. Finally, in our last example, just to show you a different genre or time period, here's an original image straight from the camera. Here it is with a primary color correction being applied. And here it is with a creative look being applied that gives us a nice warm vintage look, more reminiscent of an earlier time period. And not only can we apply a final look that gives the story the extra oomph we're looking for, but because we're using groups, it saves us a ton of time by having this same final look applied to all the clips in the group. The magic of all this is if we've done our color correction and shot-to-shot matching first, then all the clips will match even when the look is applied using groups. Now, if there are any mismatches, we'll just go back and make the necessary changes. And coming to our earlier example where we group the clips in Resolve, here it is now with the final look being applied to the group. It's just that simple. To quickly review, we do our color correction first, fixing problems to form our base correction. We then do shot-to-shot matching next for consistency. We group our clips together using groups, which is kind of like the linchpin that holds everything together, and then create our final look for the film. By following this proven top colorist technique, you'll get the clean results that you're looking for. But this technique just doesn't work for me. It works for all kinds of people. Look, here's JR saying he always thought that he could find what he needed online in the form of free tutorials. He said there were many nights where I would get frustrated trying to achieve a pro look watching YouTube tutorials, and it didn't work. Your academy gave me a sound understanding on the color correction process, and your grading workflow has had the most impact on me. I feel confident now that I can deliver products to TV. After JR took a leap of faith on the academy, he was able to build a sought-after brand, and he now produces directs and color grades, celebrity music videos, and other cool freelance projects. Now you're probably thinking, how can I be sure that any paid training will be able to help me in my color grading? Well, you can sometimes find good tutorials online, but generally you'll spend a lot of time sifting through them to find the right one, and it can be frustrating when 20 minutes into one, you don't find what you're after. In the Color Grading Academy, not only do we go through this process step by step, but we also reveal the same theory and processes that are used by top colorists and filmmakers from around the world. Wouldn't it be awesome to stand out and be complimented on the look and style of your work? Wouldn't it be even more awesome to have someone reach out to you interested in your work? Now I've shown you how you can color grade like a Hollywood colorist without having to move to LA with this one powerful grading technique. All right, secret number 2, making the grade. The 9 steps to become your own colorist without feeling lost or overwhelmed. Once you've completed these 9 steps, you've completed the journey to becoming your own colorist. I'll share with you those 9 easy steps in just a minute, but I first want to share a quick story. In my 3rd year of college, one of my professors was covering a section on color correction. He explained that it was a dedicated craft, calling it a dark art even. He said nobody knew its secrets, but its inner members. He said these guys had cushy jobs, drove exotic sports cars, and had profit-sharing plans with the studios. These were the guys that were the only ones smart enough to do it. Have you heard that before? I don't know if it was just a myth, but I too thought that they were the only ones who could do it, that it was just too difficult or technical to do myself. But then over the course of my career, as I gradually discovered these secrets, I realized that they're not that difficult to follow once you know them, and that I could become my own colorist. I also realized that other people could get the same results in a shorter period of time, in a matter of days actually, if the right steps were laid out from the beginning. And it's such an empowering feeling to know that you made the grade, that you can do it. Take Robert Quadra, for example. He also thought that he couldn't color grade on his own, that it was just too difficult, and he would have to rely on LUTs to get results. In fact, he said, I used to throw on a LUT or plugin and call it a day for years. However, your academy taught me a fine balance of technical and theory when color correcting/grading. I went from sweating over scopes with a sniper stare and getting lost in nodes to now only using a max of a few nodes to get the look I want, and only using the scopes as a glancing guide and trusting my eyes more. Robert now does his own grading and runs a successful freelance business in LA, working on award-winning projects. Now you might be thinking that it's too overwhelming to understand all this stuff, right? Well, it's actually quite easy to understand when you know what the steps are from start to finish. In fact, there are only 9 steps, and I've created a roadmap for you revealing the step-by-step path that gets you from being a beginner in color grading to finishing your own films and creating your own looks and LUTs. If you look over in the chat box over to the right, you should be seeing a download button where you can download the Color Grading Central Making the Grade roadmap. Go ahead and click on that to download the PDF. I'll leave that link up for just a minute. Now you'll see on this where likely all of us got started, and that is by exploring color grading with LUTs and presets, essentially using other people's looks that they've created. But this isn't color grading because, for instance, LUTs don't address things like fixing shots, shot-to-shot matching, or having good-looking skin tones. But from there, we can continue on to the next step by familiarizing ourselves with tools such as the video scopes. We then have the grading workflow, or what the right steps are to follow, which we actually covered in our first grading secret. We then move on to color correction, fixing problem shots with primary and secondary color corrections. We then move to matching clips together so there isn't a break in continuity. You know, we don't want our audience being thrown out of the scene. And finally, we get to the fun part of grading where we can create looks that support the story. We can discover how color theory impacts our audience and how to use it in our grading. And finally, we can create our very own LUTs or look recipes to save ourselves time and create our own signature look. Once you've completed these 9 steps, you've completed the journey to becoming your own colorist. And as you can see, seeing the big picture makes it a lot easier to understand and less overwhelming to where you can say to yourself, hey, I know where I am. I know what the next step is. What do you think? Can you do it? I know you can. So let's take a closer look at some of these steps so they make more sense to you. You might look at the scopes for the first time and think that they're too confusing to understand, right? Actually, they're quite easy to understand once you know the relationship they have with the image. It's kind of like Neo being able to see inside of the Matrix once he understood who he was. For instance, if I overlay an image over top of the waveform, you can see that the trace, the stuff you see here, corresponds to the actual image. And what this does is it allows us to evaluate the exposure of the image with the shadows or blacks at the bottom and the highlights or the whites at the top. We can then adjust those levels using the primary tools like the color wheels, where the lift mostly affects the shadows, the gain mostly affecting the highlights or the whites on top, and the gamma mostly affecting the areas in between like the skin tones. Then, when we compare this to the Ansel Adams zone system, which you can download by the way, you can then use it as a guide to know where you should adjust everything. For instance, if say you want to brighten a face, you know what tool to use, in this case, the gamma control, because most skin tones lie in this region, and then according to the chart, you know where to put the skin tones between zones 4 and 7, depending upon their complexion. Are you getting this? Is this making sense? The vector scope, another intimidating scope, is really nothing more than a color wheel. With it, we can see what colors are in the image, and what's really cool is we can use it to fix skin tones with secondary tools. In fact, with a power window, a really cool trick is to isolate just the skin so we can only see them in the vector scope. And then with the secondary tools, we can correct the skin tones along this line called the flesh line or I-bar with the hue versus hue curve. There's all kinds of different skin tone complexions and different lighting situations, and with this flesh line, it makes it easy to know where to go. You might also be thinking that matching shots in a scene or shots from multiple cameras can be an impossible task, right? Actually, you'll find it quite easy when you set up the shots properly in a side-by-side configuration where you can compare them visually and in the scopes. Then it's just a matter of getting the levels to match using the color controls and doing any necessary secondary corrections. Would you believe me if I told you you can match the look of 3 completely different cameras? Does that seem impossible? Well, it's not, and we actually demonstrate how to match one such example in the Academy with footage shot on a Sony Canon, and Blackmagic camera. And finally, you might be thinking that it's too hard to come up with looks on your own or how to implement color theory to create an effect for your audience. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's entirely possible, and we've developed a proven system for generating looks. If you know what color theory or color palette you want to use, like say a warm look or a bleak cold one, there are 3 different ways to get that into your color grading. And I'm going to show you a preview of this system. You can either push the colors or color palette into the tonal range using the color wheels, or for more custom control using the curves, or you can change the colors of specific objects in a scene using the secondary tools to better fit with the mood or with a certain color design. And we can also combine the 2 methods together for maximum effect. Like you see here, we've created color contrast by pushing cool tones in the scene with the color wheels, and then using a secondary adjustment to make the skin tones pop or contrast with the background. This is a complementary color design. And there are a lot more color palettes or color designs that we can use, but I just wanted you to see a preview of the system in action. In the Academy, we'll have more time to show you how to implement many other color designs using this system. When I finally got to this level of creating looks on my own and finishing my way through the grading roadmap, it was really exciting because I finally felt like I had a firm grasp on color grading and I could do it all on my own. It's an exhilarating feeling to know how to save a shot that seems unsalvageable, how to get shots to match perfectly, skin tones that look amazing, and how to create a signature look that sets films apart and that can then be reused as your own LUTs. So now I've shown you how easy this is with these 9 easy steps that gets you to be the colorist of your own films. You can make the grade. All right, how are you feeling? Let me know how you feel in the chat box. Okay, we're now on to our final secret. Secret number 3, big budget look, how to get an expensive high-end look without buying more gear. Let me just share with you a quick story about when I was first getting started in color grading. At first I became really discouraged because all the tools were expensive. Only a few people had access to them, and I used to think that you needed all this fancy stuff and equipment to be taken seriously and land those big jobs. But what I discovered is almost the exact opposite. In fact, most jobs out there don't require fancy equipment like control surfaces or grading monitors. I mean, a client is going to ask you what equipment you work on. And what I found is that I could actually get the same results using the tools I already had. Take DaVinci, for instance. It used to sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but now it's available for free and runs on a laptop. Plus, the vast majority of work delivered is delivered to the web. So it doesn't matter if it's graded on a $5,000 monitor like Apple's Pro XDR display or a $500 one. If it's calibrated with, say, an X-Ray i1 probe to sRGB or Rec. 79 color space, it'll do the job. And just to illustrate what's even possible, a few years ago, I graded a feature film with a nationwide release. It was all done using Color Finale I co-developed for Final Cut. And to show you what's possible, all I used was a desktop monitor and a mouse to grade it. Yet I was able to create a big budget look on a small budget. Isn't that exciting? The cool thing is, it hasn't just worked that way for me, it's happened for all kinds of people. Here's Drew Tukolv's work. He used to think that he'd only be able to land work if he was working on the best equipment. But he realized that thinking this way was limiting his potential and that he was missing out on opportunities to do freelance work. So when a friend approached him about color grading his documentary for, say, $50, oh, and he'd also buy him dinner, well, this turned out to be Drew's first paid freelance gig. And from that one experience, he discovered that he could get great looking results with just a MacBook Pro, a mouse, and a keyboard. That one job launched an exciting career for Drew of working on big projects. Don't you love this guy's work? Again, the client won't be so much interested in the equipment used, but in the results that you can deliver. Makes sense, right? Now you're probably thinking, but if everybody has access to the same tools, how can I set myself apart? Actually, just having a tool doesn't automatically make you great. I learned this the hard way, but having the right knowledge and skills is the key, and that is what Drew found as one of our early Academy members. So now I've shown you how you can set yourself apart and get a big budget look with the tools you already own. Can you see yourself grading a big project with the tools you already have? That would be awesome. I would love to see that. So let me ask you a question. If you followed what I showed you in secret number 1 and you were able to color grade like a Hollywood colorist using the top grading technique I've shown you, then you did what I showed you in secret number 2 and were able to easily understand all this stuff and get results quickly, and then finally used secret number 3 to create a big budget look with the tools you already own, do you think you could be successful? Heck yeah, you could. Let me ask you a question. How many of you are excited about what we talked about today? How many of you are feeling a little overwhelmed because we covered so much? How many of you feel like this? Well, it's impossible for me to show you everything there is to see in this 60-minute presentation, but I tried to cover as much as possible and reveal the things that will help you start seeing a difference today. But I know that there's more that I can do for you. I know that there's more that I can give you. So for those of you who are looking to move forward and implement the things that I've shown you, can I have your permission to spend the next 10 minutes going over a very special offer I've created just for you to help you to get your work to stand out? If that's cool with you, type yes into the chat box. All right, awesome. So this is what we did. We wanted to do something that will help shortcut your success, and so we created the Color Grading Academy for DaVinci Resolve. And when you invest right away, you'll get instant access to all of our best color grading secrets, where we walk you through the Making the Grade roadmap step by step. Here's what we're going to cover. We'll first start with helping you get projects edited or imported into DaVinci, how to read the scopes and perform basic color correction tasks with the color wheels and curves. We'll cover how to use LUTs or lookup tables in your color grading. We'll go over secondary or isolated corrections to fix specific image issues. And we'll spend a lot of time making sure that your skin tones look their best. We'll then launch into color matching different shots in a scene and from different cameras with our proven matching system. We'll then jump into color theory and how to use color theory to create looks using our proven look generating system. And finally, we'll show you how to create some of the most popular looks that you see in Hollywood and on TV so you can have those same looks on your own projects. By joining the Color Grading Academy, you're getting the exact system I personally used to launch my freelance career and work with big clients like Facebook. Now let me introduce you to some of the people who've had a chance to go through this. There's Brett Lyon, who says, "For the past year or more, I searched tirelessly for a well-rounded course that would educate and arm me with the tools to know what I'm doing. I can save you the trouble of months of searching. The only course that worked for me and left me fully satisfied was the Color Grading Academy." Then there's Scott Ackerland, and he says, "Thanks to Denver Riddle and the Academy, I got a new job as the lead creative finisher. I really wouldn't be here without your awesome guidance. I'm a self-taught colorist, but I feel like I've never been alone in the course of my career. I can't thank you enough for helping budding colorists." And probably my favorite story comes from Corey Wright. He says, "Being super poor, I could never afford college, and I dropped out of high school with everyone thinking I was crazy for trying to run a business. But your story, your work, and the Academy have been crucial for my growth, and because of you, I've been able to go full-time with video the last 3 years." So I want to go back and make sure you realize who this Academy is for. It's for people who are just barely getting started, and for those who might be further along in their journey but are stuck at the same level with their images. Now you might be thinking that you can't get started with this because you have too many other things going on right now. Here's why that's a mistake that will hold you back from success. You're already here, so you know that color grading is something that you need to make the look of your films stand out. And honestly, it's one of the easiest things you can do to get a big return on investment on the look of your films. So here's what you're going to get. When you sign up, you're going to get instant access to the Color Grading Academy for DaVinci Resolve, a total value of $797. Also, as a part of this package, you're going to also get access to the raw footage used in the lessons. This will help you hone your grading skills with real-world examples. When I was first figuring this stuff out, I ran into a big roadblock. I didn't have a lot of material to practice with, so I sort of created problems for myself to try and fix. That was frustrating because it didn't always work. Way back then, I had to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to get better with the little footage that I had. But I don't want you to have to do that. I've already amassed a ton of footage over the course of my career, and I'm going to just give it to you with this package. Sound cool? With this footage, not only will you save the time and money I spent to acquire it, you'll also save months or even years of wasted time and money. That's because you'll be able to get real-world experience right off the bat. There's no trial and error period. And if you think it's all beautifully shot footage on high-end cameras like the Red or Alexa, well, actually, there is a good variety of problem shots that are shot on lower-end cameras as well. So not only do you get the experience of grading the high-end stuff, but you also get to work with the more challenging stuff. You might also be thinking that there's a watermark and you won't be able to use this in a demo reel. Actually, there are no watermarks and you're welcome to use the footage as long as it's only used in your reel and passed off as grading work and not as anything that you've shot. So you're going to get the Color Grading Academy with the raw footage, a total value of $2,294. I want to make sure that you have everything that you need to be successful. Therefore, as a part of this package, you're also going to get the CinemaGrade software, which is a plugin that we've developed for Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, and Final Cut Pro 10. Along with the Academy for the built-in tools, you'll also get cutting-edge grading software that lets you color grade directly on the image. When using this plugin, you can simply click and drag on objects to change their color, kind of like point-and-click grading. You get real-time previews of LUTs, 90 built-in colorist looks, 22 film stock emulations, and film grain. I had to go through a lot of trial and error early on in my career to get good results in the color grade, but you don't have to because you're gonna get this plugin as a special bonus. This bonus will make it 3 times faster and easier for you to color grade projects and apply big budget film looks in seconds. Now you might be thinking, if I get CinemaGrade, why would I use the built-in tools? Well, you can kind of think of CinemaGrade as a complement to the built-in tools. It can be used as an alternative for fast turnaround times, but there are some tasks where you'll still want to have the native tools for doing things like shape masks and tracking. With this bonus, you're getting all my years of experience as a colorist, the shortcuts I've discovered, the workflows I've developed, all condensed into an easy-to-use software. As a part of this package, you're also going to get access to the look hacking system, which will help you recreate the look of any image or film on your own footage. So if you see a film that you want to recreate the look of, this is how you will do it. I remember early on in my career, a client coming to me and asking me to recreate the look of a certain commercial for a project I was working on. I had to go through a lot of experimenting, a lot of frustrating back and forth with the client to figure out a system that easily and accurately recreates the same look of any film. But you won't have to go through that same hassle because I'm going to give you this proven look hacking system as a special bonus. This bonus will make it faster and easier for you to recreate the look of any film or project. How? Because we reveal our secret behind the scenes process of how to reverse engineer a look so you can recreate any look on your own footage step by step. Doesn't that sound amazing? This is the same system, in fact, that I used to create 3 additional Instagram filters when they approached me again a year later to create filters that were based on sample images that they gave me. And they absolutely loved the results. And it's not just me who's had success using this. Here are examples from others who have used the same system to match the looks of Breaking Bad, Star Wars: A New Hope, and one of the 007 films. Now, you might be thinking that it's too difficult for you to figure out, but when you actually break down a look into basic color language, which we show you, you can then use the color tools to recreate the same effect, and we'll show you how to do it. Can you imagine being able to get the same look of your favorite film on your own project? That would be awesome. You can do that with this. So you're gonna get the Color Grading Academy with the raw footage, the cinema grade software, the look hacking system for a total value of $2,790. So what else do you need? Well, what about actually help with landing that next big gig? Well, I wanna make sure that you have everything you need beyond elevating the look of your work. Therefore, as a part of this package, you're also gonna get access to the Landing Your Dream Job method, which will help you to know what to do to attract clients or employers. I went through a lot of rejection and disappointment to figure out what clients or employers are looking for when they go to do a hire. But you won't have to, because I'm giving you this as a special bonus. This will make it faster and easier for you to land that next gig or job with a company where you want to work. How? Because it shows you specifically what clients and employers are looking for in a demo reel, as well as additional things you can do to set yourself apart from competitors. Now, you might be thinking that you have to have a huge body of work or portfolio to show for yourself, right? Well, there is a way around this, and you can develop a respectable demo reel with the tips and techniques I show you. So here's a quick recap of everything you're gonna get. You're gonna get the Color Grading Academy with the raw footage, the cinema grade software, the look hacking system, and the Landing Your Dream Job method, a total value of $3,035. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna charge you $3,035, but if I did charge you $3,035 and all this did was to get your films noticed and you got that one phone call or email from a big client or company wanting to work with you, would it be worth it to you? If all the system did was help you color grade like a Hollywood colorist without having to move or train in LA, would it